Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And if I may, I'm going to be a little bit animated. It's Friday. I'm the last session of the day. Thank you all for joining us. And as Michael had mentioned, I remember while I was going to college, I was doing my master's along with, actually, I think at that time I went back to do my accounting degree. I was doing my master's in global management and working full time. So I was in the virtual world, and there was someone in our program who was actually in the hospital and had done brain surgery. And I was like, and going to school doing this, I'm like, all the excuses and things that I would say or how tough it was just really tells you about, resiliency and knowing that, with the right people around you, you can get through almost or everything. So on that note, thank you for joining us. Our segment this evening is, or this afternoon, is really going to look at some of the business aspect of, what does this all mean? And I have a couple of my panelists here. I'll just read the bios. I will apologize in advance. One of my panelists is not able to attend, but if Pat Watts is available, I'll ask her to join because she was one of the presenters last night as well. Yvette Richardson is a founding principal of Sabera Richardson and Weinsberg Engineering and Architecture, and has over 25 years experience in design, construction, facilities management, and financing in the public and private sectors. Before SRW, Yvette was a project manager at Bovis Lend-Lease on the World Trade Center Memorial and Museum, and managed over $80 million of construction. A vice president at Citibank Community Development, and managed the engineering risk of Citibank's Northeastern U.S. community development lending portfolio, valued at over $400 million, and held various other positions at New York Presbyterian Hospital, Myers Strong & Jones, and electrical contracting companies. She's active in the community as an officer, member, and volunteer for various professional, philanthropic, and nonprofit organizations involving youth mentorship. Yvette is a professional engineer registered in New York and a LEED accredited professional. I also have joining us today Eric Alexander, who is the director of Vision Long Island and the founder of Long Island Main Street Alliance that represents 45 active downtowns. For over 20 years, Vision has advanced transit-oriented development, affordable housing, pedestrians improvement, and downtown small businesses. They focus on promotion, local, state, and federal lobbying, public and private grant assistance, and community-based planning from the bottom up to reach consensus on redevelopment. Through the Corona shutdown and partially reopening, their collective work has been able to assist local small businesses stay open and secure needed resources. The next panelist I have this afternoon is Michael Govinda, who is an information technology IT professional with over 30 years of experience delivering IT training to a wide variety of audiences, including the U.S. military. He prepared those individuals for high-level certifications from Cisco, Microsoft, and other major vendors. Michael started Arista Careers, a small business owner proprietary school located in Hempstead, New York, that delivers healthcare and IT training for over 10 years. Major healthcare courses being offered are CNA, medical assisting, EKG, phlebotomy, etc. Major IT certifications offered are Cisco, Microsoft, Amazon training. Michael was educated at the University of Guyana, City of London University, York College, and Pace University. He obtained his bachelor and master's of science degree and is in pursuit of his doctorate. Congratulations on that, Mike. I don't know, is Pat also in the room? I can go over her bio really quickly. Patricia Watts is a president and CEO of Faithcom Inc., DBA FCI Management, founded in 1998. FCI is an energy water consulting company offering a broad level of expertise in energy, water efficiency services. Today, FCI is certified woman-owned minority corporation headquartered in Long Beach, California, with offices in New York and Georgia. Ms. Watts developed her knowledge and skill from an expansive 24-year career in the electric utility industry with Southern California Edison. During this time, she led management and supervisory positions. She held management and supervisory positions in customer service, energy practices, marketing, public affairs, community relations. This experience allowed her to acquire an in-depth knowledge of electric utility industry in both the regulated and deregulated environment. Thank you everyone for joining, and I hope you're having a great day. So let's start with my first question. Thinking about now that we're in March of 2021, while we know there are some temporary jobs, there are still not enough and unemployment is still high, especially amongst young people. We also have been told to anticipate some jobs not returning. I think throughout the conference yesterday and today, one of the topics that resonate or keep coming back, it's training and retraining, which seems to be an important part of getting a new job. What are some areas of training in your business or just businesses in general for you, or that startup can benefit from, and what are some of those benefits? Anyone can go first. It doesn't matter. You just may unmute and speak.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'll try to take that question. So in my industry, which is we're a architecture and engineering consulting firm, it's always important to know the technologies, right? So especially now with COVID, everything's virtual, and I mean, everything was technology driven, and even more so after COVID, right? After this pandemic. So I would really recommend that young folks know the technology, specifically 3D design technology, including Revit or Vectorworks or ArchiCAD, and as much virtual reality technology and AI that's out there. I think is extremely important. That's what I would recommend that people, young folks learn.
Okay, thank you. Pat, Eric, Michael?
I'm happy to take a stab at that.
Go ahead, Pat.
So in the energy efficiency business, we're in the energy efficiency business, meaning that we are actually the company that goes out and touches the customer and helps them to upgrade their energy consuming devices to more energy efficient devices. So we're talking lighting, air conditioning. We're also talking about control. We're talking about renewable energy technology, solar, and EV charging stations. There are a lot of opportunities in those 5 to 4 categories I just mentioned. There's so many jobs available. We are currently hiring. We are looking for people who can go out and do outreach, education, energy assessment for commercial customers, to go out there and tell them, in their facilities, in their buildings, what their lighting upgrades would look like and how much they would cost them, and help us to implement the energy efficiency programs that we do for utility companies. We're also looking for installers. So we need people to be able to install all of these energy efficient devices, and lighting and air conditioning, 2 very different disciplines, but there are lots of opportunities, and there are not enough individuals currently that see these as a career opportunity when it is from entry level all the way up to senior advisors. We as an industry are looking for these individuals, and training is available, many of them in their local colleges, universities, trade institutions, but we really need people to understand there's vast opportunities out here, and we are looking for them. And they should look in organizations like the Association of Energy Service Professionals, Association of Energy Engineers, and see what these careers are about so that they can pursue them.
So it's funny that you just before the next presenter shared that you talked about exactly those skill set, and it's become more and more needed. And I think one of the things is that folks think that it's not sexy enough or it's not attractive enough, and that these jobs don't pay, when the actual reverse is true. But I think one of the other presenters wanted to share. Go ahead, whomever.
Michael, yeah, I have a quick question there. To piggyback what Yvette just said, I think technology is a key, especially in vocational training. And one of the things that's picking up, which is a plan to have for Africa, is aquaponics. And I'm in the vocational training school, so I know exactly what it is. And you mentioned, Yvette, artificial intelligence. Years ago, when it first started, we were telling the machine what to do. Now the machine is collecting our data and telling us what to do with these bots and so forth. So it's an industry, and I think college is good, but I think coupled with vocational training skill sets, I think the young folks. One of the things I'm doing right now is getting people without GEDs who couldn't make it through college or high school to get them retrained or reconditioned to get back in the industry. So we need to get those folks, especially the minorities, in that vein of thought, that they could do it, and not because they didn't make it through high school or something. There's still an opportunity for them. So we need to be the leaders in that forefront.
Yeah. Okay. Eric, did you want to comment?
Sure. I guess, in most of the industries we're working with, on Main Street, most small businesses are slowly hiring back their old crews. So most of Main Street, as far as retail goes, in the development world, there's about 40 developers on Long Island that are doing transport projects. They're on schedule, a little delayed due to, largely due to some government slowdowns and the coronavirus restrictions. So we're seeing multifamily really strong. We're seeing office is a question mark. Retail's hurting. Hospitality will rebound. Industrial strong. So that means architectural jobs, engineering jobs. Some of these are open, but everything is, more in person than digital. A lot of this stuff, So in the world we work in, as far as main development side, there's certain things you can do remotely, but as far as advising young people, get them prepared to get back out there as things loosen up. And to be clear, most of the small businesses in our universe are joyfully hostile to a lot of these restrictions at this stage. They really want to get going. So, and some of them have been very unfair for quite a long time. So I think people are anxious to hire and get going and earn again. And I think that's what we're hearing from our small business community.
So I have a couple of the questions, but I think like what I'm hearing, and I want to touch on it, is this aspect of technology. And especially I'm definitely, with AI coming about, and even talking about small businesses that now have to take their businesses, regardless of what it is, that they have to now have an online presence. And one of the in earlier conference, they were talking about what's coming in Port Jefferson with this, the amount of jobs it's going to create, and like what are some of those jobs. How is it, I guess maybe Michael, you can talk a little bit more in terms of how is it that you're preparing some of these, or how you're marketing so that people who are looking for job opportunities, or employers who are wanting to have their employees retrain, how are you marking that and presenting that for them to be able to know? Mute. It takes a little minute.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did years ago was work with major companies and figure out what they need, and I was preparing them, the student that is, for the job market, not just to teach them just to pass an exam. So what we need to do is get more involved with things that the industry wants. When they walk into a job situation, they shouldn't have that problem of oh, I didn't learn this in school, and that's what we learn in college. But to understand the question that you just asked, what do we need to do to get them prepared? The things that they have to develop is great communication skills, be team players, and in addition, the soft skills play a great part. So what I do usually with my students is I would sit them down, just not to get them through a course because it's 5 weeks long or 4 weeks long, but to show them the discipline that they need to go out in the industry, because getting a job is pretty hard, especially with the competition you have in unemployment, and they have to compete, and they have to compete at a high level. So I really train them hard to get those skills, and that's what we all need to do as teachers and administrators in the industry.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment before I go to the next question?
I want to comment. I want to encourage all the young people, and not even just the young people, anyone who's looking for a job, to really network, right? I think that, it's, you can answer a cold call or respond to an ad, but oftentimes it's who you know, and you get a reference, and that's how you get jobs, right? So I just want to encourage people to use LinkedIn, use social media, and just drop a note to someone. You see someone who posted an article or something is going on, like this conference, and if they're interested in it, just say, I heard you speak at the conference, and do you have a half hour that we can talk? And that happens to me all the time, and I always welcome it. And I think it's great because I'm able to pull people into my network and make some introductions and also share some resources, and I think that's really helpful.
I would also like to mention that there are a lot of workforce development programs sponsored by the utility companies and other organizations that are focusing on careers in the energy efficiency, renewable technology. So I would encourage people to also look at those opportunities for additional training that they might not find a particular course in a college that they want to take that's going to help them learn how to be a lighting specialist or an HVAC specialist. But workforce development programs are offering a lot of opportunities as well to get the education that you need to be able to go out and get these jobs.
And to add to that, a lot of companies want experience. So coming to the college, you have none. So what I do, I tell my students, go and take an internship, if it was free for 3 months. That's going to get you something on the resume. It would add to your skill set, your knowledge, and now you have experience. So that's what the companies look for, that you work somewhere or interactive with some, set of organization.
Okay. And I
I'm gonna
wanted to
jump.
point.
I'm
Go
gonna jump
ahead.
in here too. Sorry on this one. I can't resist to say virtual world and we're all adapting, but the biggest challenge in everything right now is trust, particularly with hire. So you can't build trust online. I mean, you can't develop relationships. I mean, I guess you can, but not ones you're not gonna hire someone because you saw something nice online. It's just not happening. You got to get tactile, real, engaged, and you got to gear people up for that. Also, attitudinal, huge problem, massive problem with kids coming out. And I get complaints all the time from the small businesses we work with on that front. So I think people have to gauge their expectations in life with what opportunities are actually in front of them, particularly in this climate. So I think there's kind of adjustments needed.
Okay, so those are all great stuff. And one of the things I want to mention is that this is not just also with the young people. While I did say about the young people, a lot of individuals are out of jobs. This will apply to everyone, because part of the workforce will have to be retrained because some of these jobs are not coming back. And it's interesting that even with how we have to embrace technology, and we still have that trust issue. I mean, even online, in terms of the whole cycle of buying, people are going to visit your website like probably, it's the 10th time before they make up their mind. And actually, before they do that, they're going to call your phone. And actually, depending on how you answer that phone, or the relationship, that's the closest you're going to get to that in-person relationship, will make a difference in terms of how they buy. And I mean, trust is also the people who you're using as brand ambassadors as well, for people to onboard. All right, let me go to the next question. And one of that is, I wanted to talk about a little bit, how has the pandemic impacted your organizations?
I could go first on that one, because one of the things that I'm a licensed school, and they have the skill set to perform. And they do the skill set in a nursing home. We all know what happened in New York. So they're not accepting any students as interns. So yeah, because of all the elderly that died there. So it's a great impact in terms of skill set, and in terms of students being trained. They don't have the practical skills, and it's restricted how many students can enroll, because now certain programs you have to cut. Definitely.
Okay. Anyone else?
Sure. We have offices in New York, Atlanta, and California. We had programs going on with utility companies in all three areas. The pandemic started a year ago. Everything just stopped. Everything just stopped. We had to move people out of the office. We had to, just re-engineer how we did business. Now we're working remotely. I mean, we literally had people taking their computers home and getting set up to work at home. Those of them that still could work, and others we had to furlough. Some of our programs, because utility companies are notoriously really focused on health and safety, we're not ready to go out and have customer-facing programs, so they have not been able to restart. So that has really tremendously slowed down from a business perspective. Our revenue that we've been able to generate in the last year has been impacted by that. In addition to the fact that as we did start to go back to work and we started to do things differently, we went from in-person visits to virtual businesses. We went from knocking on doors to calling people on the phone. And you know what happens when you call people on the phone anymore these days. You don't know whether it's legitimate or not. So it has been a challenge. And we're hopefully coming out of that slowly but surely, but we still have programs in Georgia that are still on pause. And we're still kind of moving into some new programs. So we actually have new contracts. And so it's all been, a bit of a challenge, but we've stood up to the test of time. I can say that. As we move forward into 2021, we hope that we start to build this momentum. And again, we're hiring, so that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for my business, we of course, I mean, like many other businesses, we had a reduction in revenue. We had some projects stop. We were fortunate that we had some projects that were deemed essential that continue going, that kind of kept us going. And then, of course, we transitioned and we're still working remotely. And so we have experienced like a loss in productivity. We see that, and we understand that, because everyone's situation at home, this pandemic has been just so tragic for so many people, so we can't expect them to work at their full productivity like before. So we're definitely experiencing that. But at the same time, because we did have some projects that continued, and people were kind of being furloughed and let go, we were able to hire some really fantastic talent. And so we're really excited about that. So there definitely was some pluses and minuses, but just grateful to still be able to speak to you guys and continue to operate.
Yes, for us, our main streets, we started 2020 looking at like it would be our best year, with like 45 different downtowns having some kind of revitalization program on the island. The regulations obviously limited that. that came down from Empire State Development. So that was really, almost decimated our small business community. With that said, a very strong shop local movement and takeouts for restaurants, and then also an exodus of people from the city for different reasons, helped buoy our business districts. We did, we managed with actually fairly low vacancies comparatively compared to what we thought we'd see going through the winter. So, when rent relief happens, obviously, or doesn't, when the rent is really due, we'll see what the picture really looks like as far as the economics of small businesses. On the development side, we saw, a bit of a slowdown, but no cancellation of projects as far as multifamily and transit-oriented development. How that impacted visions. We started an interview show. We started like a Main Street News interview show. Corinne, I want to get you on. Fantastic. I'll get you on the show. So we've been doing that sort of thing. We've been doing relief, like food delivery, pushing for corporate philanthropy. We're shifting into like relief and aid and promotion and lobbying mode tied to immediate needs on our main streets, as opposed to in our small, helping them get PPP loans. There hasn't been much federal outreach in that area, state outreach. So, we've had to kind of fill gaps and holes, but we've been able to hold it together because we just had to shift to a ground game. The air war wasn't going to work. So we actually had to shift more direct. So it's very interesting. Everybody's talking about Zooms and virtuals and everything. We couldn't do what we do without really doubling down on a ground game. So we maybe had a different experience than others.
It's interesting because there are a couple of things that are coming up, which, I guess when you look at themes or that emerges out of just talking, even just on this one topic, you hear the technology, the AI, the companies actually doing well still. Some companies are still doing well, whether, they're able to get the best talents now because there is that influx of availability where they can get them in. And that will also help because you're kind of like setting yourself up to really succeed, because now you have some key sorts of individual that you would like to have there. And just thinking about that, not, a couple of interviews I've done or stories I've read, as Eric mentioned, like in terms of being able to sustain. Not all the businesses, even in the downtown, were really doing that badly. There are some communities, however, they pivoted, either whether it's a community sort of thing that they did, or as, Yvette shared about even projects. For me last year, I couldn't go after any new projects. I did lose some funds, but I was able to work and keep those projects that I had then, because they could actually transition in a virtual or, a dual sorts of space. So let me go to the next question, because I do want to allow some opportunities for folks. Please jot your questions down so that you can ask the panelists. We're talking about a lot, social justice, equity, and diversity, and thinking about that in terms of tech, which is kind of, I guess, what I was just sharing a little bit about too as well, the tech, engineering, healthcare industry, because these are some of the areas that we're going to see a lot of booms in, and what we have to prepare for: small, mid-sized, large, startup, schools. This is what it is, a little bit more extensive, but mostly, how will we begin to start addressing those issues so that we know that it can benefit either it's our business or community wealth or education, or just helping this small business to get back on their feet? Any comments?
So I'll start. I think one of the things that we have to continue to do is to keep the conversation going through organizations, through business organizations, chambers of commerce, and our major corporations. Certainly, we've seen the corporations take a major step forward in DE&I, and they're focusing and incorporating that not only in their internal corporate, but their external corporate responsibility. They're open to the conversations. But chambers, ethnic business organizations also are a part of that conversations. Organizations like NMSDC, National Minority Supplier Development Council, the American Association of Blacks in Energy. There are Hispanic Association in Energy. There's an Asian Association in Energy. So I'm saying that I think the conversation has to occur amongst these organizations, which really support a multitude of not just businesses, but individual interests in diversity, equity, inclusion, and especially in racial social justice.
Okay. Any of the other panelists, please jump in at any time.
I mean, I guess I'll jump in. I mean, we one of the biggest things that we found with coronavirus is you see the disparities happen immediately, and obviously it was happening in education. In our world, in the small business community, the minority women-owned small businesses were not as plugged into the PPP program and some of the other loan and other forms of. And we kind of jumped in to kind of fill that gap. We had a partnership with African American Chamber, South Asian Chamber, and a lot of the local community chambers through our Main Street lines, 45 groups downtown. So we kept pushing to try to get access to these programs, and we just found how those disparities are so there. When we called 6 business districts, mostly diverse type communities on the island, we'd call about 300, 400 businesses in each business district. We'd find that a third of the people never heard of the programs, a third of them maybe heard about it somewhere, and a third of them made a decision to access it or not. And those numbers way off what maybe more well-established or largely white neighborhoods of business. There's that huge disparity. Our groups jumped in to fill it, but the real question is that I think that we learned out of this is there's just not appropriate outreach on any level. Minority, diverse organizations and businesses to access resources that should be out there for everyone. And that was, I'm not surprised, but it's just was a giant exclamation point like 5 times and a lot of anger. It's because we're a few days off the deadline here for PPP. I don't even want to know the numbers as far as access. It's just it's not pretty. So I'll stop there, but I can go on. For the next interested time, I'll stop.
Yvette is laughing, so I think her and Michael want to say something. Go ahead.
I think equity and social justice, it should start at an early age, especially they write these acts and it's thousands of pages like the CARES Act and so forth, 600 pages. I don't think the minority community would be interested in reading that. They probably want to watch a ball game or something. That's their focus. But I think early education, have them get involved, and activities, we get people involved. So I think early age education and make it available to the community rather than just a few who could read and understand what's in those packages.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Yvette.
Oh man, I have so much I can say on this topic. But
you're going to talk to Eric afterwards.
Yeah. Just piggybacking on some, what everybody said so far. The PPP loan and the CARE Act, one of the things that I found among my MWBE colleagues is that either it was too intimidating, right? Just the whole program, or they didn't trust it. They were like, there's no way the government's going to give me money and forgive it later. It's like, there's no way I'm not falling for that. Like they just had trust issues. And I was like, are you kidding? You have to do this. Like the emergency disaster loan is a free $10,000. Just take it. Like, are you kidding me? How do you tell? But what I wanted to also talk about is that there's a disparity among the disparity, right? There's a disparity within the disparity where Black and brown firms and companies are really, not having the opportunities and I think we need to change the narrative. I know corporate America has been sending a lot of messages, and I'm just hoping that they put, their money where their mouth is and actually really help change the situation for Black and brown firms that are out there, because it's there's a lot of outreach and there's a lot of training. For someone like myself who has a company for 17 years, it's like, okay, I don't need to learn how to do a business plan. So it's like, what we're really looking for is opportunity. And I know I can't compete with the big fish in the ocean, right? So you have to put me in the right pool. I just want to compete and be able to get work, and especially prime work, because I think there's also been a focus on subcontracting, subconsulting participation, which for minority firms, it doesn't help us, especially in the professional services, to get, like, say, access to capital, because we can't leverage a subcontract. You can't leverage that. So it's like, what do I come to the bank and say, this is what I have? Yes, you can have it. If I don't perform, I have nothing as a subcontractor. So I feel like a lot of government agencies are putting their responsibilities on prime contractors to help them, to make them meet the goals, when really the responsibility should be with those government agencies. Okay. Oof, I got that off my chest. Thanks.
No,
Sorry
you
to
know what?
offload on a Friday afternoon.
No, that's okay. I'm an MWBE and I get what you're saying, because part of it, even I like to go after the subcontract work because it keeps a lot of the other things that, I can't be sending money and spending the kind of money on bids. But then you also look at it, as you just rightly point out, is like, how do you really grow your business? Because whatever that percentage is that you're allocated, then they can negotiate that, so you're still not at what it is, and you have employees and taxes and so on. And while they want us to have that, the inclusions and so on, they want more, minorities to be involved in energy and renewable space and in technology. They're not necessarily doing what they need to. But that's a topic for another time, and I don't want to, as you shared, it can be, this is Eric. Eric's going to have both of us on his show to talk about his revitalization and so on there. But I see Neil too is also in here, and he knows a couple of stuff there. I think, Eric, if you want to have something to say, I'm going to probably ask like one or two more questions and then go into open for discussion with the panel. So go ahead, Eric, if you had a comment you want to share.
No, I mean, go to your question. I'll comment on your next one. Keep it moving.
Okay. All right. So one of the things we kind of touched on this a little bit, is what are some of the common trends that we're preparing for 2021 onwards? We talked about AI in terms of, or just technology in general. Maybe it's getting back, as Eric had mentioned, Pat and Mike mentioned in terms of some of it, in terms of the vocational training aspect. What are some trends? What are some common trends?
So there's definitely some growth in the renewable energy area. Incredible amounts of commitments have been made for not only for solar energy, but also for EV charging. I don't want that to get off of anybody's radar. There is a need, if we're going to go to electric vehicles and really focus on carbon reduction, there is the need to build an entire infrastructure that will support electric vehicles. So that's EV charging stations being installed across America. There is a huge effort, and it's definitely trending, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in that field. And there's, charging is a science too, if you will. I mean, there's different types of charging for different types of batteries. People want to go in and charge their cars just like they fill up for gas. It takes 5 minutes and then you're on the road and you're going. You're not charging for hours. So I think that is one of the really key areas people should be looking at for trends.
Okay.
I think one of the big things I should see happening, would like to see happening, is the educational system. First of all, they put you in college for 3 to 4 years, and all you do is concepts. One of the courses I took, or college I went to in London, I did electrical electronics, and it was a sandwich course. I would spend 6 months. I would start in August and go up to February, and then the next 6 months I'll be working at a firm. I had to be sponsored by a corporation, a company, and I would work 6 months in industry and 6 months in college. So I have 2.5 years experience by the time I finished college. So I was certified, pretty early to be as an electrical engineer. So I had my license and everything. I give that up for computers. But I think that's what we should look at, and get people trained. Concepts is too much to keep unless you go into financial sector or something.
Okay. Anyone else?
I mean, I'll jump in. So we're going to see, obviously trend lines ease. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So regulations are going to ease on the state level. We see that coming due to the company or just because of the health numbers. Not really sure why. There are a lot of lawsuits, industry by industry, going after the regulations. So those are going to change things. On the positive note, we're seeing more walking and biking in our more focus and emphasis on health and mental health that's needed to get out of this thing, as well as the economic crisis. We're seeing a municipal adaptation to a whole lot of different changes. So if you're going to look into work in government, there are definitely a lot of things happening on the very hyper local level. See the shop local efforts and a loyalty to businesses continuing. That is a strong market for that. I vision between the big businesses and the small businesses. And I heard some people say that corporations are doing a great job in certain areas, maybe voicing support for diversity or maybe doing real things. But I think when you really zoom down locally, the coronavirus has been so hostile and joyful to local businesses that folks are going to need a real push to get out of that and get out of that economic quagmire that we've been in. We've seen, we see still a lack of corporate philanthropy on Long Island. There'd be a lot of questions about that. It's a fairly grumpy middle class out here right now. And folks just want to get back to normal. I mean, I know there's new normal. I know there's adaptation conferences about adaptation, but I want to say the people that we speak to across Long Island, white, black, Indian, whatever it all is, Hispanic, want to get to some kind of normalcy in their lives and deal with and kind of build out of all the social and certainly health issues that they've faced. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Anyone else? And then I have one last question. I'll ask everybody just a quick, maybe 30-second, 1 minute before I go to Q&A. Yvette, go ahead. I think you wanted to share.
Yeah, just real quick. One of the trends that I'm seeing is that, and it's, as for a small business, I think maybe some of the larger businesses have probably been doing it, is that buildings have been, we're actually in the process of designing a pilot program to electrify a New York City housing building and to make that like repeatable. So we're seeing more and more that buildings and the built environment is going to reduce their use of fossil fuels in order to reduce their carbon footprint. So I think anything in the electronic, field, it's gonna, I see that trending.
Okay. I see a hand raised. Just give me another 2 minutes, and I'm going to open up for Q&As. My last question to you is, I want to ask is, what is one thing you would need to restart or, to get your business growth or to take the revenue to the next level, or something, Eric, you're more on the community spectrum in terms of to get to that next phase? What's that one thing? For me, get me a nice couple of contracts. That's that one thing. Give me a nice MWB contract.
The two things that I see, we need a reduction in regulations, and we need to allow people to earn. And we need massive outreach so that Long Island or anyone don't leave money on the table from these federal programs. Like line by line, we need massive outreach to take full advantage of this. And that somehow, those two things, we can kind of bounce back a bit.
Okay. Next panelist, go ahead.
Corinne, I don't know if you're referring to me.
Not yet, Halden. Just give us. I just wanted the after they answer, then you can ask your question. Go ahead. Who wants to go next? Pat, Yvette?
I'll go next. So, we've been very, lucky to come into 2021 with new contracts. And so you might have heard me share about this opportunities for careers in this industry, but there are not a lot of people. So my one thing is talent. I am looking for talent, and talent at every level. I'm looking for talent that's experienced. I'm looking for people who are interested in entry-level jobs into this industry. So that is my one request. I've taken advantage of all of the other things and the other opportunities that will help us move throughout the year, but now we need the talent to come in and, make that productivity that we have so that we can continue to grow our company.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I wish it could have is a killer app. You develop an application that everybody would jump onto. But more importantly, I think the advice I would give to people going in forward in this year is automation. Everything is in programming, scripting. Learn things like Python, DevOps, where to learn Chef, Puppet, and those languages, and that's gonna develop their skill set because the old-fashioned way of doing things, where we configure stuff as we did before, is all going to automation, and it's being scripted, templates, and unless you have that skill set, you can't compete with the people up there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the things that will benefit not only my firm but maybe everyone is better access to technology, more affordable technology. I mean, I think that the cost of accessing the internet, having cable connections, buying software, buying hardware is just tremendous. And I think that I think it's going to be so important for everyone to be able to utilize the technology and have access to it affordable, in an affordable way. I think that'll really boost everyone's game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just say thank you all for really participating and being a part of this discussion for me. I think it's a very important one, not just for us in terms of our businesses, whether it's in energy, it's in renewable, it's in technology, it's academia, or just, startup or small businesses. I really appreciate you being a part of this, and for the team at Farmingdale and UE that helped to make this happen, and sponsors. Now, what I will do, I'm going to ask one of the admins on here to maybe navigate with the questions. I think Halden had a question because I can't really see the chat or whose hand's up. So Halden had a question. I guess you can go ahead, and then someone else from admin can monitor that for me, please.
Yes, Corinne, thanks very much. Let me say, awesome presentation. Very good, very exciting, very interesting. Yvette sort of touched on one of the questions I was about to ask, and that is, what in the toolbox? Well, we have students among us here, and we need to somehow, at least channel some of this discussion in their direction. So what in the toolbox do we need to have as recommendations for young people coming into the business? What are the expectations? I know we talk about soft skills and we talk about some of the IT skills and so on. And I just want to use this opportunity for you, Corinne, to remind participants that this session qualifies for professional development, and probably to advise on how they can access the certification. So probably might want to address that from an admin perspective and from the team's perspective. Thank you.
Okay, Corinne, are you going to address the professional development portion? Oh, did we lose her?
Probably smoother.
Yeah, it takes a minute. It takes a minute to unmute.
Corinne is frozen.
We hear you, Corinne.
We can hear you, Corinne.
Let's go off again, Corinne.
Yeah, Corinne, I'm sorry, you're muted.
Still muted.
There you go.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I was saying maybe one of the admin team can talk a little bit more about the PDH, where you can get the forms to fill that out. But yeah, this is part of those soft skill that Mike talked about too. It's like we take these things for granted. Transferable skills are what you're worth, whether you're a business or you're looking for a job, whether you're an adult or youth. That's the dollars that go with what it is that you need to do. And you need to get as many of those as possible, because that's what allows you to go into the next gig or the next job that you're going to do for the next 2-3 years, or whatever it may be the career for you. And I won't unmute myself, so this way I don't have to go back into that. Any other questions? I think there's some questions in the chat too. Go ahead, David. Now you're muted.
I'll just read a question from the chat.
Okay. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Am I okay now?
Yeah.
How about now? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, how do you all feel about getting big money out of politics to allow progressive policies such as cancelling student debt to allow new people to enter the sector, or divesting subsidies from fossil fuels into green energy? How much more could be achieved if the government was more behind getting diverse people into the industry?
I'm laughing because I'm looking at the faces on the screen at the question.
You got to vote the right people in.
Yeah. No, that's all those things sound really good. It's definitely bigger than what I'm qualified to respond to. But yeah, canceling student debt, I'm all for that, definitely. What comes along with that is the question, right? And I don't know.
Eric, you want to take a go at it?
Yeah, I'm not going to touch. My Visions board of directors hasn't authorized me to give my theories on canceling student debt. I'm a Gen Xer. We paid our debt like everybody else did, so I'll just stop there. But what I'll say is, to the initial question the gentleman asked, which I think is an important one, and I heard Corinne's part about the hard skills. I still think everything in public life right now, the first 3 problems in every interaction is trust, trust, and trust. Because only on the hyperlocal level do we have it. Everything from like county, region, state, federal, disaster. Worse than I've seen it in 35 years of doing in this game. So counsel your students. It's not about hitting a button and creating an app. You got to do all that, I'm sure, much better than I can. Teach them to be trustworthy, connect with real people, be human, and build relationships with people, because you're going to hire someone like that. I'm not hiring someone who hits buttons for me. That's nice, but I can get a lot of people to do that. I need someone I can trust on my team.
Right.
And I think in all relationships we're dealing with right now, I think the biggest problem in society right now is that lack of trust. So I just throwing it out there. Sorry, if I'm a little on edge today, but I love everybody on this. I love the commentary. So I just wanted to say that.
You should have brought us coffee too, because you had that big mug there, and none of us here have no coffee.
I'm in a Starbucks, so free Wi-Fi here. So.
I'm David too. All right, nice, David. Okay, I think any other questions for the panelists? I think there was one in the room. What is FCI management? So Pat, I guess that's your company's, the abbreviation for your company's name. I just saw it on screen, but.
Yes, I responded.
Okay.
Good chat.
Okay, any other questions for our panelists? I guess if not, I'm gonna turn the room over to the, thank you again for all joining us. Thank you again for participating on this panel. Feel free to leave your contact information about your company in the chat. So if anyone wants to connect with you, they know how to get a hold of you. And for the events host, if you want to take it over from here, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Corinne, and thank you very much to your panel. I want to thank everybody who attended. It's been an unusual conference. If we had gone according to plan, you'd all have been in Jamaica, and you'd be now thinking of where you're going to go, I guess, maybe to have a little bit of jerk pork or something like that, or possibly an adult beverage. But it didn't work out that way. We spent a little while figuring, let's wait and see what happens to the pandemic, and the pandemic didn't go away. So we decided to do a virtual meeting. And so I want to thank, first of all, the IT staff, who are the people who work behind the scenes to make sure we could have a virtual meeting. And so particularly we want to thank Kenny Tax, Kivman Lee, Kristen Vassell, and the rest of the information technology team from Farmingdale. Thanks as well to John Goldstein, Doug Rochelle, and the Office of Institutional Advancement and the Admin and Finance Division at Farmingdale. We had a really good team of people working from both the University of the West Indies and State University of New York, and not just Farmingdale, but also from we had Henry, for example, from Stony Brook. We had Nazrul. We had a very broad team. Everybody put time together and allowed us to put this meeting together in the rather innovative way that we've had to do it. I'm told that next year we'll probably have the meeting in Jamaica, and if we do, I'll be very, very happy to welcome all of you. There have been some interesting connections between New York and Jamaica, quite apart from the obvious where people from Jamaica live in New York and vice versa. We have more recently been connected by Sandy, which spawned in south of Jamaica and then eventually ended up in New York. If you're interested in trivia, something you might want to share with people after you leave is that in 1882, when Thomas Edison started rolling out electricity to houses in New York, by the next decade, in 1893, the first house in Jamaica had also received electricity. So there's some interesting potential relationships that we'd like to continue working on, making sure that our students on both sides are able to learn more from each other, and that we can maybe look at starting to do some joint research. We had very interesting discussions both yesterday and today, some very challenging discussions as well with regard to the future of the industry, how we can address the problems of climate change, and how we can make sure that access to electricity is equitable and sustainable. And that's going to be incredibly important over the next decade. So we're going to have to keep that discussion going. We heard from politicians, we heard from elected officials, we heard from industry leaders, we heard from people in the not-for-profit sector, we heard from engineers. We want to thank everybody who contributed. We want to thank very much as well our sponsors who made this possible. And I want to as well, I'm just going to single out one person, and that's Professor Marjane Sapur, who pulled us all together, got us all in line, organized the team, kept us focused on the goal, and even when the pandemic was doing its best, managed to keep us focused and got us to this point where we were able to hold this meeting, host people from all over the world, and I think everybody learned something, and we are looking forward to the next time we do this. So thanks again to everybody for attending, and we will be sending out information to all the people who attended. You'll be able to get copies of the presentations, and thanks again to everyone. I'm going to stop there and wish you all very much the best. Let's meet again in face in Jamaica next year. Bye-bye.